My project investigates the health implications of edible seed oils. I used the research question: what does current scientific evidence suggest about the relationship between edible processed seed/vegetable oil consumption and the development of chronic diseases? So, going into what are seed oils are edible oils extracted from the seeds of plants, and these are oils like canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, and more. So, seed oils are also very high in omega 6, specifically linoleic acid, which is a type of omega 6 that will be mentioned throughout this presentation. So, some benefits of seed oils. Seed oils are affordable and accessible. They have a long shelf life, making them convenient for storage. High smoke points, making them great for cooking, and are rich in polyunsaturated fats. Like I said, the omega sixes and a linoleic acid. They support vitamin absorption, especially fat soluble vitamins, and promote heart health when consumed in moderation. So, seed oils are processed, which does not necessarily make them unhealthy, but the presentation will discuss further concerns with the processing methods. So, going into some concerns, the industrial origins of seed oils have caused some concern because historically seed oils have been processed as a byproduct of manufacturing processes. So, early processing methods such as hydrogenation, bleaching, and deodorization introduced potentially harmful compounds in the seed oils. So, when consumed, then you're consuming those harmful compounds. And then also, some argue that influence of early marketing and industry funding shaped public perception of the seed oils. So that's basically saying, like, if seed oils are funding the companies, or seed oil companies are funding the research regarding seed oils, people are concerned that that data is manipulated in a way to produce data that encourages people to buy more seed oils. So that way the seed oil company is getting more money. But that's a bit more like controversial, but it is a concern that some do have. And then also modern processing involves the use of hexane, which is a liquid that can be harmful specifically to the nervous system as a solvent, which causes concern. Also, there are concerns about the long-term health effects regarding highly processed oils and their impact when consumed in excess, which will be discussed a bit further in the next few slides. So there is a debate surrounding inflammation in seed oils, specifically the linoleic acid, the type of omega 6 fatty acid in the seed oils. So some studies suggest linoleic acid may convert into molecules such as arachidonic acid that could trigger inflammatory processes. However, large-scale human trials show weak or no evidence that linoleic acid intake increases inflammation. Nutritionists emphasize overall, like the bigger picture, that total fat intake, overall dietary patterns, and lifestyle factors influence inflammation more than any single oil. There are also some concerns regarding cancer and oxidative stress. So, high linoleic acid intake may cause oxidative stress, which can lead to cell and tissue damage, which can then therefore increase the risk of cancer. So, linoleic acid can also break down into harmful byproducts like 4-HE, which can affect DNA and cell function, which can also increase risk for cancer. So, seed oil consumption also has possible links to breast, prostate, and colorectal cancers, but there have been minimal studies to investigate that link. Most evidence has come from animal or preclinical studies, and human data is very limited. Another interesting thing to look at is how our diets have changed. So historically, people consumed 1 to 2% of their calories from linoleic acid, and that number has risen to 7% and higher today because seed oils are in a lot of what we eat, especially ultra processed foods. So, this rise coincides with increasing rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. And looking at traditional groups like the Maasai, located in Kenya, and the Tokoluans, located in New Zealand, they eat diets low in seed oils and high in saturated fat. These tribes have low levels of chronic disease, and this contrast has led some researchers to question whether replacing saturated fats with seed oils has gone too far. So, just another interesting take, because these tribes do consume their fats, they consume their food from animals mostly, and their fats from, in animals it's saturated fat, and they do have low levels of chronic disease. So, an interesting point to make about unsaturated versus saturated fats. So looking at like what's happening at the cellular level, high linoleic acid intake can accumulate in cell membranes and increase susceptibility to oxidative damage. This oxidative stress may impair mitochondrial function, reducing efficient energy production. Excess linoleic acid may also disrupt autophagy, the cell's cleanup and repair process. Reducing linoleic acid intake has been shown to lower markers of oxidative stress and inflammation because linoleic acid can cause oxidative stress. So when you have less of it, it makes sense that you'd have lower markers of oxidative stress. So, looking specifically at a study, the Minnesota Coronary Experiment, which I will refer to as the MCE, was reevaluated and reexamined in 2015, and it basically reexamined the diet heart hypothesis that used previously unpublished data from the MCE and compares finding with modern diet heart randomized clinical trials. The MCE was a double-blind, randomized controlled trial and assigned 9,423 adults between the ages of 20 and 97 to a cholesterol-lowering diet, replacing saturated fat with linoleic acid-rich vegetable oil, or were assigned to a control diet high in saturated fat. Low serum cholesterol, which is associated with higher linoleic acid consumption, was linked to a higher risk of death, which was very interesting because typically that's not what we hypothesize. And these autopsies of the people who've passed away showed more coronary atherosclerosis and myocardial damage in people that died. So this challenges the assumption that replacing saturated fat with omega-6 seed oils automatically improves health, showing cholesterol lowering does not always translate to reduced heart disease or mortality. So these autopsies that were done, like that data, that was found when the MCE was reevaluated. That information was discovered and examined, which uncovered how these people died from coronary atherosclerosis and myocardial damage. So these just images just show some data from the MCE and the analysis that was conducted in 2015. So the Sydney Diet Heart Study was conducted from 1966 to 1973 with 458 participants that were followed for a year. The study investigated whether replacing saturated fat with linoleic acid that came from safflower oil would reduce the risk of coronary heart disease and mortality. The intervention group was given safflower oil margarine, which is high in omega-6 linoleic acid, which replaced the saturated fats in their diet. And then this intervention group actually had higher death rates from the control group, which you can see. We'll look at the coronary heart disease, for example, CHD. They had the intervention group had 16.3% death rates, and then looking at the control group, which only had a 10%, and that applies for the CVD and the all-cause mortality as well. It's just overall higher percentages, which is interesting because they consumed more linoleic acid, and the control consumed more saturated fats. This is just another study that kind of contradicts what we think about seed oils and omega-6s and saturated fats. And then the goal of this study, the tea seed oil, so it was a randomized controlled animal study, and it was to compare traditional versus low temperature refined tea seed oil on gut microbiota, fat gain, and inflammation in high fat diet obese mice. So male mice were randomly assigned to control traditional seed oil or low temp refined oil groups. The traditional oil kept 60 to 80% more vitamins. The mice gained 28% less weight and had 34% less belly fat and showed 35 to 50% lower inflammation and toxins. This data shows refining methods affects seed oil health effects. Gently refined oil preserves antioxidants, reduces obesity and inflammation markers by 30 to 50%, improves gut microbiota in contrasts with some other trials. So basically, to summarize, the seed oil that was less processed, less less refined, actually had better health and nutrition effects on the mice. And then this data just shows that through these graphs. So some conclusions that can be drawn from my research is that replacing saturated fat with linoleic acid-rich seed oils did not reliably reduce heart disease or mortality, and in some cases was linked to higher death rates. And also lowering serum cholesterol through omega-6 seed oils did not translate into better health outcomes, challenging the traditional diet heart hypothesis. Autopsy and clinical data showed signs of greater coronary damage in groups consuming more linoleic acid, and high omega-6 linoleic acid intake may increase risks of chronic diseases, including cardiovascular disease, rather than prevent them. And then also health effects of seed oils vary by processing method, with gently refined oils retaining more nutrients and producing significantly better outcomes in metabolic health, inflammation, and gut microbiota, which the tea seed oil mouse study showed. And then less processed seed oils may reduce obesity-related measures by 30 to 50%, suggesting that refining methods, not just fatty acid type affect health impacts. So, overall conclusion is that current evidence raises concerns that high intake of industrial processed omega 6 seed oils may have underestimated risks, whereas minimally refined oils may provide more protective effects against obesity and inflammation. But the main takeaway of this presentation should be that industrial, highly processed omega 6 seed oils may not provide the health benefits long assumed, and less processed and nutrient preserving oils can have very different, more positive effects on inflammation, metabolism, and overall health. But then also just to have overall a healthy diet, not stress too much on the little specific chemicals, as long as you eat everything in moderation, have a balanced diet, eat your fiber, eat your protein, eat your carbs, eat your fats. As long as everything is balanced, you should be good to go. So thank you.